He thought he'd struck gold when he hacked my login, but every file he stole was a carefully crafted bomb. Now he's standing before a room of executives, staking his career on $40 million worth of lies, while I sit in the front row with the real data and watch his world implode in real time. The first rule of corporate warfare is simple: never underestimate the quiet ones. We're the ones taking notes while you're taking credit. We see everything, document everything, and when you finally push us too far, we have the receipts. My name is Natalie Cross, and this is a story of how I used 6 dummy files in surgical precision to end the career of the man who tried to erase mine. For 6 years, I'd been the ghost in Adoranov's machine. While 20-something MBAs with perfect teeth presented my frameworks to the board, I worked in a windowless office tucked between the server room and supply closet like some digital Phantom of the Opera. The location was actually perfect. No accidental drop-ins, no casual surveillance. Just me, my algorithms, and the constant hum of servers that never slept. I was 36, single, and according to every performance review, exceptionally reliable but lacking executive presence. Corporate speak for she does all the work, but we can't picture her in the corner office. They had no idea how right they were about the first part, or how spectacularly wrong about the second. My invisibility had become my superpower. When the Peterson account imploded because someone merged databases using the wrong primary keys, they called me at 11:45 p.m. on a Friday. I fixed it by 3 a.m. while they slept soundly in their suburban beds. When our biggest pharmaceutical client discovered their entire predictive model was built on corrupted datasets, I rebuilt 18 months of analysis in 4 days. No one asked how, they just took the credit and moved on. I'd watched this dance for years. The same script, different actors. But everything changed the day we landed Horizon Outfitters. $30 million to overhaul their entire data infrastructure and build predictive models for their 500-store chain. It was the kind of project that makes careers, wins awards, gets featured in Harvard Business School case studies. For once, I thought things might be different. During the initial planning meeting, our CEO Marcus Chen looked directly at me. Natalie will be instrumental to this project's success. Her expertise is exactly what Horizon needs. For exactly 4 to 7 seconds, I let myself believe it. I started sketching team structures, imagining myself presenting to Horizon's board, finally stepping out of the shadows. I should have known better. That same week, HR announced they'd poached a rising star from our biggest competitor, someone who would elevate our client engagement capabilities. The announcement included a professional headshot of a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a venture capital promotional video, square jaw, perfect teeth, the kind of confident smile that screamed, "I've never debugged code at 4 a.m. His name was Chase Darrow, and he was about to become my worst nightmare and greatest opportunity rolled into one devastatingly handsome package. Chase arrived on a Monday morning like a hurricane in a $2,000 suit. 31 years old, Harvard MBA, Silicon Valley fairy tale resume. He'd supposedly turned around 3 failing startups, led digital transformations at Fortune 500 companies, and somehow found time to give a TED Talk about authentic leadership in the data age. The entire office was buzzing before he'd even found the bathroom. Marcus introduced him during our all-hands meeting with a reverence typically reserved for visiting dignitaries. Chase will be leading our Horizon Outfitters engagement. He brings fresh perspective and a proven track record of client success. Then, almost as an afterthought, Natalie will be supporting all analysis, modeling, and technical implementation. Supporting. There it was. That word that meant everything and nothing. It meant I'd do the work while Chase did the talking. It meant my name might appear in size 8 font on slide 4 to 7 of the final presentation. It meant another year of being the wizard behind the curtain while someone else took the bow. Chase found me in my office that afternoon. He didn't knock. People like Chase never knock. "You must be Natalie," he said, flashing that venture capital smile. "I've heard you're the data genius around here." The compliment felt rehearsed, like something pulled from a management book about winning over technical teams. He leaned against my doorframe, taking up space like he owned it. "I'm really looking forward to collaborating. I have some innovative ideas about the Horizon project that I think will blow their minds." I smiled and nodded, playing the part of a supportive team member. Inside, I was calculating how many hours of my life I was about to lose fixing his innovative ideas. It started small, as these things always do. Hey Natalie, could you send me the historical data for Horizon's Pacific Northwest stores? Then, I need the customer segmentation analysis by end of day. No please. No thank you. Just assumption that my time belonged to him. By the second week, he was forwarding me his emails with client questions, adding only handle this at the top. By the third week, he was telling people he was managing the technical resources on the project. I'd become a resource to be managed, not a professional to be collaborated with. The breaking point came on a Thursday at 4:37 p.m. I was deep in building a complex predictive model when Chase burst into my office like he'd been shot from a cannon. I need your login credentials for the Horizon internal folders, he said. Not asked, said. I'm putting together a preliminary deck for the client and need access ASAP. I looked up from my screen, my fingers still poised over the keyboard. Those folders contain my working files. They're not ready for client viewing. He waved his hand dismissively, like swatting away an annoying fly. I know what I'm doing. I just need to pull some visualizations for tomorrow's check-in. Email me the credentials. Then he was gone, leaving behind only the scent of expensive cologne and entitlement. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my reflection in the black screen. 6 years of being overlooked. 6 years of watching my work disappear into other people's portfolios. 6 years of being told I wasn't executive material while executives presented my solutions to rooms full of people who controlled my future. Something inside me shifted. Not rage. Rage was too hot. Too quick. This was colder. More precise. This was calculation. If you're enjoying this revenge story, smash that like button. I opened a new folder, Horizon Final Reports, NC. My initials at the end, barely noticeable unless you knew to look for them. Inside that folder, I began crafting something special. Not lies. Exactly. That would be too obvious, too crude. Instead, I built beautiful, professional-looking analyses that were subtly, catastrophically wrong. Dashboards that looked impressive but used corrupted formulas. Predictive models based on outdated algorithms. Data visualizations that would crumble under the slightest scrutiny from anyone who actually understood Horizon's business. Creating those dummy files was like composing a symphony of destruction. Each one had to be perfect in its imperfection, professional enough to pass a casual glance, flawed enough to detonate under pressure. I spent my evenings crafting these masterpieces, usually after Chase left around 6 p.m. for whatever networking event or expensive dinner was on his agenda. The first file, Customer Retention Analysis 2024. The dashboard gleamed with interactive charts and heat maps, colors perfectly chosen to impress. But underneath, the retention calculations were inverted. Where real data showed 78% retention, my version showed 22% loss presented as gain. The formula was buried deep enough that you'd need to actually understand statistical modeling to spot it. The second file, Revenue Projections Q3-Q4. Beautiful trend lines soaring upward, suggesting 40% growth. Except I'd accidentally used data from Horizon's Australian stores, calculated in Australian dollars, then displayed them as US dollars without conversion. The exchange rate difference would make their projections off by millions. The third file was my personal favorite, Market Segmentation Model. I used real customer data but applied segmentation logic from 2014, before Horizon's major demographic shift. It would tell them to target suburban families in areas that were now primarily young urban professionals. Files 4 through 6 were equally elegant traps. Inventory optimization using wrong seasonal coefficients, a pricing model that ignored the historical elasticity data, and competitive analysis that mixed up Horizon's data with their biggest competitors. But here's the beautiful part. I built each file with my standard naming conventions, my digital signature embedded in the metadata, timestamps showing creation dates weeks before Chase even joined the company. Then I created parallel versions, the real ones, stored in my personal secured folders with detailed documentation of every calculation, every source, every decision point. I also started leaving digital breadcrumbs. Every time Chase accessed the dummy folders, my script logged it. When he downloaded files, I knew. When he renamed them to remove my initials, I had screenshots. The email to Chase was brief. Here are the credentials for the Horizon folders. The files in Horizon final reports should have what you need. I hit send at exactly 5 p.m., then saved a copy to my personal archive. The trap was set. All I had to do now was wait. Chase took the bait like a starving fish hitting a diamond lure. Within hours of getting the credentials, he was downloading everything. By the next morning, I watched him present my corrupted dashboards in the team stand-up, explaining the insights he discovered. I spent all night crunching these numbers, he announced, pointing to visualizations I'd built 3 weeks ago. The patterns are fascinating. Sarah from Analytics raised her hand. That customer churn rate seems off. Are we really losing that many premium members? Chase's smile never wavered. That's exactly the kind of conventional thinking we need to challenge. Sometimes the data tells us uncomfortable truths. I kept my face neutral, taking notes like a dutiful supporter. Inside, I was documenting every false claim, every misrepresentation, every moment he passed off my sabotage work as his breakthrough analysis. Over the next 3 weeks, Chase became completely dependent on my poison well. He'd demand new analyzers, always urgent, always last minute. I'd supply them from my special folder, each file a perfectly crafted weapon waiting to backfire. The most telling moment came during a Tuesday afternoon check-in. Chase was showing Marcus our progress, using my dummy files exclusively. The modeling work is exceptional, Marcus said, then looked at me. Natalie, your technical skills really shine through here. Actually, Chase interjected smoothly, while Natalie provided some initial data pulls, I've completely reimagined the analytical approach. This is fundamentally different methodology than what we typically use. I smiled and nodded. Chase has definitely put his own spin on things. Let him claim it. Let him own it. Let him build his entire reputation on a foundation of corrupted data and impossible mathematics. Every presentation made him more invested, more committed to the lies. He couldn't back out now without admitting he'd been presenting garbage for weeks. The preliminary review with Horizon was scheduled for the following Monday. Chase had already sent them the full deck for pre-reading. There was no turning back now. The fuse was lit, and I had a front-row seat to watch it burn. The beauty of a well-executed trap is that the victim springs it themselves. Over the next 4 weeks, I became Chase's most dedicated supporter, at least on the surface. When he needed files by 8 a.m., I had them in his inbox by 7:45. When he demanded last-minute changes for client calls, I delivered with a smile. Each interaction was meticulously logged, timestamped, and archived. My documentation system was military-grade precise, screenshots of every Slack message where Chase claimed ownership, just finished analyzing the Q3 projections. Found some game-changing insights. Video recordings of team meetings where he presented my dummy files. I've developed a revolutionary approach to customer segmentation. Email threads where he forwarded my work to Horizon executives with his signature as lead strategic analyst. The most damning evidence came from Chase himself. He started a shared folder called CD, Horizon Deliverables, where he stored his work, my corrupted files with the metadata stripped and his name added to headers. He didn't realize our system kept version histories, showing the original files copied from my folders, complete with timestamps proving I'd created them weeks before he arrived. Subscribe if you want more workplace justice stories. Meanwhile, I maintained 2 parallel workflows. While feeding Chase the poison pills, I built the real analysis in secured folders only I could access. The actual Horizon data told a completely different story: manageable challenges, realistic growth opportunities, actionable insights that would genuinely transform their business. Every model was documented, every assumption explained, every calculation transparent. This was my real work, my insurance policy waiting in the wings. Chase's confidence grew with each passing day. He started cutting me out of meetings, telling Marcus I was better utilized doing back-end work. He began speaking at industry webinars about his innovative approach to retail analytics. He even submitted an abstract to the National Data Science Conference, featuring visualizations pulled directly from my sabotaged files. The IT logs told the real story. Chase accessed my dummy folders 43 times in 4 weeks. He downloaded every file, some multiple times. He tried renaming them, reformatting them, even recreating them in new documents, but the digital fingerprints remained. Every action created a trail leading back to those original corrupted files in Horizon Final Reports, NC. 3 days before the big presentation, I overheard Chase on a call with Horizon's CFO. "The numbers are absolutely solid," he assured her. "I've personally validated every model, every projection. This is bulletproof analysis." He was standing outside my office, speaking loud enough to ensure I heard, a power move, letting me know he was taking full credit. I opened my backup folder and reviewed the real analysis one more time. Clean, accurate, actionable, everything Horizon actually needed. Then I looked at what Chase would be presenting, a $40 million disaster waiting to happen, built on impossible math and fantasy projections. The gap between reality and his fiction was insurmountable. That evening, I forwarded every piece of evidence from my work computer to my personal accounts, the logs, the screenshots, the email trails, the version histories, everything. Then I sent a single email to my personal attorney, outlining the situation and attaching key documents. "For your records," I wrote, "in case questions arise about the integrity of analytical work presented to clients." On Thursday, Chase sent a company-wide email, excited to present our groundbreaking Horizon analysis to their executive team on Monday. This showcases Adora North's next-level strategic capabilities. He CC'd the entire leadership team, the board of directors, and even some key investors. He was all in. Reputation on the line. Completely unaware he was about to present 6 files of meticulously crafted garbage to a room full of executives who knew their business inside and out. I spent Friday quietly preparing. I wore my best suit, the charcoal one I'd bought for interviews but never worn to the office. I tested my laptop's presentation mode, ensuring the real analysis would display perfectly. I printed hard copies of the documentation trail, organized chronologically in a leather portfolio. Chase stopped by my office at 4:15 p.m. "You'll be at the Horizon meeting Monday, right? In case they have technical questions." His tone suggested this was an order, not a request. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. "I'll be right there in the front row." He nodded, satisfied. "Good, though I doubt I'll need backup. The work speaks for itself." "Yes," I thought, watching him stride away in his Italian shoes. "Yes, it does." The Horizon conference room was a monument to corporate power, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, a table that could seat 20, and technology that probably cost more than my annual salary. 14 executives filed in, including Margaret Walsh, the CFO whose questions would determine our fate, and James Morrison, Horizon's CEO, a man who'd built a retail empire from a single store. Chase arrived at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. He was all confident handshakes and practiced small talk, working the room like a politician at a fundraiser. I sat in the front row as promised, laptop ready, watching him set up his presentation with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never had their code crash during a live demo. Marcus and 2 other Adora partners took seats along the wall. The tension was palpable. $30 million tends to focus the mind. Chase clicked through his opening slides, all Polish and promises, building to the data that would either seal the deal or sink the ship. Slide 1, beautiful corporate overview, strategic objectives, all the buzzwords executives love. Slide 2, still safe, market analysis pulled from public sources, nothing that could betray the corruption underneath. Slide 3, customer journey mapping, impressive graphics, logical flow. He was building confidence, setting the stage. Slide 4, high-level findings, vague enough to sound insightful without committing to specifics. Then came Slide 5, revenue projections. The $40 million slide. The moment the graph appeared, I saw Margaret Walsh's eyebrows rise. The projection showed a 43% revenue increase in Q4, their traditionally slowest quarter. In Chicago. In winter. For a company whose walk-in traffic dropped by 60% after October. "Can you explain this Q4 spike?" Margaret asked, her voice neutral but her eyes sharp. Chase's smile never wavered. "Our modeling shows untapped potential in your winter market segments. These numbers are actually conservative." Conservative? James Morrison leaned forward. "We've operated for 32 years. Q4 has never exceeded Q3. ever. Slide 6. Customer segmentation. The retirement community as primary demographic disaster. Margaret pulled out her tablet, comparing Chase's data to something on her screen. Your analysis shows our primary growth demographic is retirees. Our internal data shows 78% of our revenue comes from millennials and Gen Z. That's exactly the paradigm shift we're proposing, Chase replied smoothly. But I caught the slight tremor in his hand on the clicker. Slide 7. Inventory optimization. The summer close-in winter special. Now even the junior executives were frowning. Someone whispered to Margaret, who nodded grimly. Mr. Darrow, the CFO's voice could have frozen the lake outside. Are you seriously suggesting we stock swimwear in December? In Chicago. The data clearly shows. The data shows nothing clear, Morrison interrupted. These numbers, they are not just wrong, they are impossible. We'd lose millions following this strategy. The room erupted. Executives were pulling out phones, tablets, papers, cross-referencing Chase's projections with their reality. Questions flew from every direction. Why does the churn rate show we're losing premium members when we just hit record retention? How can our Michigan stores show higher foot traffic than our Florida locations in January? Is this competitive analysis comparing us to ourselves? Chase was drowning, throwing out business school platitudes about disrupting traditional thinking and challenging assumptions. Each answer dug him deeper. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the Arctic air conditioning. Then Margaret Walsh said the words that changed everything. Do you even understand our business at all? The room fell silent. 14 faces turned to Chase, waiting for an answer that would either save or damn him. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Morrison's voice was quiet, deadly. Miss Cross, do you have anything to add? Every head swiveled to me. Chase's face went white as printer paper. I stood slowly, smoothing my charcoal suit. Yes, Mr. Morrison. I do. I opened my laptop, its screen already displaying the real analysis, the one built on accurate data, logical models, and deep understanding of Horizon's business. The projector was still connected to Chase's laptop, but that was about to change. May I asked, holding up an HDMI cable. Morrison nodded. Please. As I walked to the front of the room, passing Chase's frozen form, I felt 6 years of invisibility falling away like old paint. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth, competence, and showing a room full of executives what real analysis looked like. The screen flickered. Chase's fantasy disappeared, and reality took its place. My screen came alive with a real Horizon analysis, clean, precise, grounded in reality. The room seemed to exhale collectively as the first accurate revenue projection appeared, a modest but achievable 8% growth in Q3, declining to 5% in Q4, exactly matching their historical patterns. This projection accounts for your seasonal fluctuations, I explained, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Chicago winters reduce foot traffic by 62% on average. Any model suggesting otherwise is using corrupted data or flawed assumptions. Margaret Walsh leaned forward, studying the screen intently. These numbers align with our internal forecasts. I clicked to the next slide, real customer segmentation. Your primary demographic is 25 to 34-year-olds, 78% of revenue. The previous analysis showing retirees as your growth market used segmentation logic from 2014, before your brand repositioning. How did that happen? Morrison's question wasn't directed at me. Question after question came, and I had answers for each one. Real answers, backed by solid data and thorough analysis. I showed them customer retention truth, 82% for premium members, industry-leading. I demonstrated how their competitive position was actually stronger than they'd realized. I revealed opportunities they hadn't seen, realistic ones. Targeted expansion in untapped zip codes. Modest pricing power in certain categories. Efficiency gains through better staff scheduling. 40 minutes in, I'd rebuilt their confidence, not just in the data, but in Adoranauts' ability to deliver real value. The executives were engaged, asking smart follow-ups, taking notes. This was what a consulting presentation should look like. Collaborative, grounded, honest. Finally, Morrison raised his hand. Miss Cross, one question. If you had this analysis, why were we shown that? He gestured vaguely toward Chase, who hadn't moved from his spot by the wall. I pulled up a new folder on my laptop. Mr. Morrison, I believe in full transparency. The screen filled with documentation, timestamps, access logs, email trails. These files show the creation history of both sets of analyses. The corrupted versions were created as preliminary drafts, marked not for distribution. They were accessed without authorization and presented as final deliverables. Margaret Walsh was scrolling through her tablet. These match the files we received last week. The metadata has been altered, but poorly. Additionally, I continued, bringing up the Slack messages, there's a clear chain of custody showing how the analyses were developed, by whom, and when ownership was claimed. The room was silent except for the hum of air conditioning. I'd laid out the evidence like a prosecutor, letting the facts speak for themselves. No accusations, no drama, just incontrovertible proof that Chase had stolen corrupted files and tried to pass them off as his own work. Marcus, our CEO, finally spoke from his spot against the wall. His face was a study in controlled fury. Natalie, why didn't you raise this internally? I met his gaze steadily. I did document everything internally. However, my concerns about analytical integrity have historically been undervalued. I believe the client deserved to see the truth. Morrison stood up. Gentlemen, I think we need a brief recess. Miss Cross, would you please remain? The rest of you, his gaze swept over the Adara team, lingering on Chase, please wait outside. As the room emptied, Chase finally found his voice. This is a setup. She deliberately. Mr. Darrow, Morrison cut him off. I suggest you use this time to consider your position very carefully. Once we were alone with the Horizon team, Morrison's demeanor shifted from CEO to human being. That was quite a risk you took. My job is to provide accurate analysis, I replied. I couldn't let you make $30 million decisions based on fiction. Margaret Walsh pulled up something on her laptop. I've been in this business 25 years. I've seen every kind of consultant, the smooth talkers, the technicians, the theorists. But I've rarely seen someone put their career on the line for data integrity. She looked at Morrison. I want her running this project. Morrison nodded. Miss Cross, we have a simple question. Can you deliver what you just showed us? Yes, but I'll need a real team, not just back-end support. I'll need authority to make decisions, not just implement someone else's vision. And I'll need direct access to your data and your people. Done, Morrison said. He stood, extending his hand. Shall we invite the others back in? As the Adara team filed back in, Morrison's message was clear and brief. We're moving forward with the project, but with one condition. Natalie Cross leads the engagement. Non-negotiable. I watched Chase's world crumble in real time. His face cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally desperate calculation. But there was no move left to make. He'd played himself into checkmate with my poisoned pawns. The walk back to Adara's offices was surreal. Chase left immediately after the meeting, escorted by building security to collect his things. Marcus stayed behind at Horizon with the other partners, probably doing damage control and trying to salvage some dignity. I drove alone, windows down despite the Chicago cold, feeling lighter than I had in years. By the time I reached our building, the news had already spread. Email works fast, but office gossip works faster. The usual elevator small talk was replaced by careful glances and knowing nods. Sarah from Analytics actually applauded when I walked past the break room. Marcus called an all-hands at 3 p.m. His announcement was brief. Effective immediately, Natalie Cross is our new head of data strategy and will be leading the Horizon engagement. Chase Darrow is no longer with the company. No elaboration. No questions entertained. Just facts. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a surreal haze of congratulations and sudden visibility. People who'd walked past my office for years suddenly knew my name. Directors who'd never acknowledged my existence wanted to catch up over coffee. The invisibility cloak I'd worn for 6 years had vanished in a single morning. But the real satisfaction came in a form I hadn't expected. Throughout that week, other analysts started approaching me privately. Stories tumbled out. Credit stolen, ideas appropriated, work claimed by those who couldn't explain it. I wasn't alone in my experience. I was just the first to document it meticulously and strike back effectively. The Horizon project launched 4 months later, on time and under budget. The 8% growth we projected, they hit 9%. The inventory optimizations saved them $3 million in the first quarter alone. Morrison sent a handwritten note to Marcus specifically praising my team's work. It's framed on my office wall, my new office, the corner one with windows overlooking the Sound. I never did find out exactly what happened to Chase after that day. LinkedIn showed he'd moved to a strategic consulting role at a startup no one had heard of. Then his profile went dark. The industry has a long memory for spectacular failures, especially ones involving client deception. As for me, I published that research paper under my own name, Data Integrity and Predictive Modeling, a case study in retail analytics. It won Best Paper at the National Data Science Conference, the same conference Chase had submitted his abstract to, featuring my corrupted visualizations. The night after the paper was accepted, I sat in my new office as the sun set over Seattle. 6 years of being invisible, of watching others claim my victories, of being told I lacked executive presence. All it took was someone foolish enough to steal the wrong files and arrogant enough to present them as their own. I opened a new project folder, Q4 Strategic Initiatives, NC. My initials, right where they belonged. No dummy files this time, just clean, honest data waiting to tell its story. My phone buzzed with a text from Morrison, looking forward to the quarterly review. Glad we have someone who actually understands our business. I smiled, saved my work, and headed home. The invisible woman was gone. In her place stood someone who'd learned the most valuable lesson in corporate America: document everything. Trust carefully, and when someone tries to steal your work, make sure what they are stealing is exactly what they deserve. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's letting someone destroy themselves with the very weapon they stole from you. The quiet ones. We're not just taking notes. We're building traps. What's the most satisfying workplace justice story you've ever witnessed? Share your thoughts below. Sometimes the best lessons come from watching arrogance meet its match.